I'm not bothering with intros, this scenario is a dumpster fire. Listen, I'm not about to defend Make a New Track for how terribly designed and exploitable it ended up being, but for all its faults, it at least functions as a scenario. And at the end of the day, while the grind was pretty rough at times, I can at the least say that I enjoyed Make a New Track for what it was. Though I might be in the minority of people who actually like to make a new track, even its greatest detractors have to agree it gives you the tools to succeed. If you can get past the admittedly high knowledge floor, and it's even a relatively free-to-play friendly scenario. But I get that Make a New Track wasn't everyone's cup of tea, so Grand Live had the chance to be a return to form of sorts. You get your career stories and secret events back, there's no subjecting your trainee to conditions that would make Niji Sanji look like a safe haven, and even the theme is pretty fire. There's definitely an argument that the idol side of Uma Musume was a large part of how it got such widespread appeal, and a full scenario focusing on that, what's there not to like? A lot, actually. Grand Live is my least favorite scenario, and I am definitely not alone in that opinion. A lot of fellow high-ranked competitive players bemoan this scenario for being, well, disappointing would be a big understatement. I personally felt my blood pressure rise while collecting B-roll for this video because how did you fumble the bag this bad? Since I'm writing this video before Grand Live is released on Global, let's just briefly go into Grand Live's mechanics. This scenario focuses on the titular Grand Live, a big fan appreciation festival that was held in the past but has since died out. Its revival is the passion project of event producer Light Hello, who is also the PAL card for this scenario. But for the Grand Live to be a success, you need to rehearse a routine, make yourself look presentable, be all cute and kira and whatever Japanese words will make me not look like a fake weeb. Every training gives you both the requisite 5 stats and skill points, but it also introduces a secondary mechanic, tokens. There are 5 distinct tokens: dance, passion, vocal, visual, and mental. These tokens are initially capped at 200 each, though the maximum can increase over the course of a career. The more supports that are on a given training, the more tokens you get. In addition, the support-linked Uma Musume as Smart Falcon, Mihono Bourbon, Silent Suzuka, Agnes Tachyon, and Light Hello give even more tokens upon being trained with. Finally, a friendship training gives you 2 different kinds of tokens instead of 1. For example, a friendship training might give you both dance and vocal. What do you spend the tokens on? Well, you need to build a set list and train your stage presence as well. This is where the main scenario mechanic known as lessons come into play. To give the best performance you can, you spend these tokens on lessons, which either give you live techniques or songs for your plan. The live techniques either give a small amount of stats, a skill pertinent to an A aptitude of your trainee, or energy. Songs pay out twice. First, there's an immediate gain of either skill points, stats, or training bonus. And then there is a second bonus that is queued after your next concert, which comes in the form of specialty rate up, friendship bonus, or support event chance up. In other words, the live bonus does not activate until after the next promotional or Grand Live, and your bonuses accumulate through your career. Live technique and song lessons rotate on a predictable cycle, as seen here, so you always know how many lessons away you are from your next song. You need 3 songs for each concert to be a great success, indicated by the expectation level gauge. Each promotional live and Grand Live gives 5 SP per technique lesson completed, and 25 SP per song lesson completed since the previous live. A great success will increase your stack caps and raise all token caps by 50. Finally, let's talk about the scenario links in a little more detail. We already talked about the increased token gain, but there's another significant event. Near the end of the career, you get the choice of 1 of 5 skills, 4 of which correspond to the playable scenario link of the Uma Musume. Trading a scenario link Uma Musume or having a support card of a scenario linked Uma Musume in your deck will upgrade the corresponding option to its golden equivalent. I want to give a special shout out to 2 of these scenario links. Mihono Bourbon Wit gives both concentration from the scenario link and taking the lead from the card itself, meaning you have 2 or 3 groundwork triggers already there. Come What May from Tachyon's link, on the other hand, is a really good medium skill. The conditions are a little wonky, but 2 to 5th on the last straight is very reasonable if you're built even remotely well, so it's definitely worth looking at. Finally, Light Hello scenario link. In addition to being able to take her out on dates, whenever you train with Light Hello, there's a chance that she will give you 20 performance tokens of the type you have the least of. Now, if you were paying especially strong attention during this explanation, you might have already noticed a few issues. But in case you missed them, let's go over them one by one. You might have noticed that I haven't said how the tokens you get from each training are determined. Well, that's the big issue. They're completely random. Each facility has a primary and secondary token that they favor, but that's not a guarantee, and there's no failsafe that lets you have an option for each of the tokens or reroll the ones provided. There will inevitably be a time where you just cannot make meaningful progress in lessons because the tokens offered are just not aligned with the tokens you want. Sometimes several turns in a row. Training is also the only source you can get tokens from, so if you ever need to rest, you're missing out on tokens. You need to do a race for a fan goal, you're missing out on tokens. You get a random migraine or your trainee decides to do their best Kishi Miracle impression. Not only are you missing out on a turn of training, but you don't even get tokens for your trouble.
But Light Hello
Does nothing! She's a scam and a fraud! She only gives you the token which you have the least of, which means if you need dance tokens but your lowest quantity is vocal, oops, no progress made there! And it's a random post-training event too, so it's not even guaranteed! And her dates don't give tokens either, so she's basically just a rest button that occasionally bails you out, but not even reliably to play around! Like, at least she gives you front runner savvy, right? Because front runners needed more buffs! Sorry, going back in post-production to add that, the way I phrase it, it sounds like any training gives you tokens. No, it's just successful training. So if you catch a 2% failure, oops, no tokens. God, I hate Grand Live. And then there's the lessons. You might think that, oh, if you don't get the songs you need, you can just go with the next best option. Except, unlike live techniques, there's nothing clamping you from getting songs that you'd never click on. Look at this turn. Now look at my deck. What exactly am I supposed to click here? And as an accessory to this issue with the lessons, it completely destroys any semblance of a deck building strategy. Because it's fairly unreliable to get the training bonuses you want, the only thing you can really rely on is just stacking your deck with as few stats as possible so you can at least rely on the sheer volume of cards to get your rainbows. And since speed is your most important stat and this scenario releases with a speed cap of 1600, unless you have a high speed growth, it's basically mandatory that you'll need 3 speed cards in your decks. But you also want energy recovery because you can't rest, you're sacrificing tokens, so 2 wit cards are basically mandatory too. And then you add Light Hello, oops, that's 6 cards! And by the way, the quality of your speed cards will also determine how much difficulty you have with capping speed. If your speed cards aren't particularly great at printing speed or power, you're even more at the mercy of RNG. There's a lot of design issues with Make a New Track, but at least deck building was fairly dynamic and free-to-play friendly because so long as you stuff your deck with enough race bonus, you could probably pull together at least something. Grand Live goes in the complete other direction. Oh, so you want to be competitive during Grand Live? Well, do you have Light Hello SSR at least 2 LB? You have 3 LB Kita? You have
MLB
Tachyon, which prints both stats and tokens? Do you have a 3rd speed printer like Maruzensky? No, not Top Road, because remember, she gets her bonus from fans, which you need to race for, which doesn't print tokens. Do you have a wit card with at least decent friendship recovery? If you said no to any of these, then you're already at a massive disadvantage. And yeah, sure, every scenario has card checks, but this is the most egregious in that department. By the way, I hope you like Make a New Track, because if you look at this deck, the 2 stats that aren't covered by this deck are Stamina and Guts, and those are both pretty damn important. So you better have good stamina parents sitting around that are built to Make a New Track for maximum affinity, because unless you have some sort of built-in recovery, you're gonna be in for a miserable time. And no, parent farming in Grand Live isn't as viable. You're not racing as much or getting as many skills reliably, so you're missing out on affinity and potential white sparks. Drink your damn kale juice, you are going to play Make a New Track, and you are going to like it. Cupcakes will continue until mood improves. By the way, checking in real quick, who do we know who's already very powerful and doesn't really care about stamina? Yeah, Grand Live is an indirect buff to Christmas OGURI. Joy to the world. On the flip side, with Summer Gold Ship releasing right before Grand Live launches, stamina debuffers can run rampant on any course. Which, like, listen, I love Wife Nature too, but like, dear God. And on top of that, there's one last mechanic I haven't even touched on yet. Turns out, there's a secret ending to Grand Live that isn't entirely obvious. Or at least, it wasn't obvious to me, but then again, I was playing in a language I can barely read, so... The scenario song is Girls Legend You, which, while a great song, I always thought it was a little lame that the scenario didn't come with a unique song, but like, whatever, I'll live with that. You always get the song added to your setlist just before the Grand Live, but if you have 18 or more songs in your setlist before getting Girls Legend You, then you get what I like to call the Grandest Live, with this beautiful cinematic, and most importantly for us PvP players, access to the scenario's gold skill, which is really solid. Let me say that again. 18 songs. And the scenario where the opportunity to even buy these songs is at the whimsy of RNG. So there's no way for you to be able to reliably hit this. Game design is my passion. I know I've been talking about the scenario in terms of optimizing your UMA stats, but even for casual fans, I can't justify this. This is by far one of the most elaborate concerts in the game, and I think it's fine to reward a player for doing especially well in a career, but the scenario is already so full of knowledge and RNG checks that I just don't see how a casual player is even supposed to find this on accident. Like, sure, if you just play for the cute horses and the story, then you probably aren't too concerned about hitting perfect stat lines or optimizing your skill list or whatever, so I can definitely see the casual side liking most parts of this scenario, but logging what I think is the grandest appeal of this scenario behind a huge RNG check is unideal to say the least. Oh yeah, heads up, one of the anniversary missions is to get the Grandest live 5 times, and the most reliable way to hit that is probably to run one of the scenario UMAs, but 3 of them aren't free to play, and if you play Tachyon, you don't have access to the best speed card for the scenario, so you're kind of just checkmated. And let's talk about that gold skill for a second, because it's really strong. I Want to Win With You gives 0.35 target speed and 0.2 acceleration, which is the same acceleration as key inherited skills like Let's Pump Some Iron and Moving Past and Beyond. The white version of this skill is way worse. Halfway to a Dream gives 0.15 target speed and 0.07 acceleration, which is barely anything. You may notice that this skill can only proc when you're in the front 65% of the pack, which in CM means the 6th position or further ahead. While this is decent mid-race for front runners and pace chasers, the real winners here are, surprisingly enough, the backliners. Both Pump and Kanata proc in 6th position, so backliners can just hide in 7th and 9th place until the late race transition, and then they have a good chance for the skill to get carryover and direct acceleration. You just hit 6th position and boom, Pump, Kanata, this gold skill, fire one after the other and your UMA just zooms away. Hey, who do we already know who's good in Grand Live and can be a late surger? Why do they keep buffing Christmas OGURI? Oh, by the way, did I mention this is the fixed version of Grand Live? As I briefly mentioned, this is the first scenario that releases with increased stat caps past 1200 across the board, with 1600, 1300, 1300, 1500, 1300. However, stats past 1200 behave differently. Basically, every 2 points past 1200 counts for 1 effective point of stat gain. So, for example, 1600 speed is effectively 1200 plus half of 400 speed, which is 1400 speed. Well, that's how it currently works anyway. How did it work originally? Well, instead of stats past 1200 being halved, they were cut by 1/8. Yeah, 1600 speed was effectively 1250 speed. Less than a double circle green skill. And by the way, training values above 1200 are also cut in half, meaning you'd have to train 800 extra speed for 50 effective speed. Yeah, this ratio was so bad that on release, Grand Live failed to power creep make a new track because the general lower reliability and less skill points meant why would you ever play Grand Live? Thankfully, they emergency patched it to the modern calculation, and when the scenario eventually released on Korean and Taiwan servers, they got the post-patch version of Grand Live, so that's what I assume they'll do with Global, but dear God, what a fumble. At the very least, Cygames seems to have learned from their mistakes with Grand Live. For one, most scenarios give their currency on any action on turn, not just training, which means you won't be screwed out of research for just needing to rest or race. Secondly, they generally reduce the number of resources down to 3, where it's way rarer to have turns where you just can't buy anything. Finally, on the one scenario where there are 5 resources like Grand Life, they make sure there was always an option to grab every quote-unquote token you need, and you can increase those yields throughout the game. Seriously, I have my personal issues with Great Food Fest, but it really is just Grand Life but executed way better. Then again, at time of writing, Trace and Ramen hasn't come out yet, so maybe they'll drop Grand Life too. Oh my god, that's Light Hello, I was kidding. So, a lot's happened since I first recorded the majority of this video. Let's talk about it. So yeah, the July 1 patch basically shook up everything about Global, and a lot of the information that was current when I first wrote the script and recorded is now outdated, so I figured I'd just throw in this little addendum here with everything I could throw in about Grand Live and how it will be affected by the changes. There's a lot to go over here, so I wouldn't be surprised if this adds a lot more runtime, but it's important to mention regardless. First off, we've already gotten the patch that gives us the new stat overflow calculation, so we are getting fixed Grand Live when it drops, which, yeah, that's a good thing. Not really anything else I want to say there. Secondly, Yurei Finale and Ao Haru Hai both got their reworks really early since that happened on JP in the latter half of Grand Live. Also, the parent affinity calculation was updated to the current JP formula, which was implemented on 2nd anniversary in JP. This means that you aren't forced to parent farm and make a new track and can still use those scenarios to parent farm instead. I still personally think that make a new track is the best parent farm of these three, since rival races allow you to get unreleased skills that are attached to future horses, but there are some really good skills that are in URA and Alharu, such as Essence of Racing Stamina, Alharu Power, Alharu Wit, and if you have Sweep Tosho, Restraint. Basically, you have more options for parent farming now if you're willing to run every scenario like a budget make a new track. This doesn't change the fact that Grand Live is still a terrible parent farm for the reasons I mentioned earlier. You can't generate tokens while racing, so don't try to parent farm in Grand Live, but it's nice to not be forced to grind through Mant every time you need a parent, especially since we have Spark rerolling too. Third, new mechanics were added to the game. The ones I want to talk about in this section are Power Conserve and Power Release. I think their translated names are Charge Up or Release Charge or something like that. I know them by their Japanese name, so I'm gonna just go with that. I briefly went over it in one of my shorts, but basically, if you have more than 1200 power, then your horse builds up charge under certain conditions and releases it when she goes into spurt mode. Some technical details are really unclear because UMA is really opaque with some of their mechanics for some reason, but the important thing is that hitting over 1200 power is really important now, and that's just another breakpoint you need to worry about. Granted, your Grand Live decks probably should include Kita, who has a power bonus, and there are plenty of decent speed cards out there with a power bonus like Mayano or Maruzensky, so it's not the most unreasonable ask in the world, but it's still yet another thing that can go wrong in this RNG fest of a scenario. Finally, but definitely most importantly, evolve skills were added to the game's code, but are currently not implemented as of me recording this. If you haven't heard of evolve skills, also known as pink skills, every horse has 2 golden skills in their kit through potential, and upon filling certain conditions, these skills can be upgraded further. Some horses greatly appreciate their evolve skills. A big winner, for example, is Hishi Akabono, who has Gourmand in her kit, which is normally kind of a wasted slot because having a golden recovery on a horse meant for short and mile distances is kind of weird, but when it's upgraded to a pink, it also gives her a target speed boost, which she really appreciates. At time of recording, there hasn't been any definitive news on whether these will be released with Grand Live, and while they're in the game and translated, it wouldn't be the first time Side Games has added things into the game well before they were available. The reason this is significant is that pink skills will have a huge impact on one of the horses I've talked about in this video. Christmas OGURI Cap is generally considered one of the biggest losers post-pinks. Her 2 gold skills are Gourmand and Innate Experience. Gourmand's upgrade just gives her more stamina recovery, which is kind of whatever on a horse that's already built to be overstammed. Innate Experience has a decent upgrade, but it's kind of an anti-synergy because when you think Christmas OGURI, you usually think medium tracks. I guess you could make it work with something like 564 and Inherit, but the point is that it's way more work to make Christmas OGURI work post-pinks. The Grand Live CMs are CM17 through CM22, and of those 6, 4 of them are viable Christmas OGURI tracks. CM17 is a dirt medium track with a really good 777s timing, meaning that she's even able to compete with the normally unshakable Kopano Riki. CM18 is a mile course, which doesn't initially look that promising for Christmas OGURI, but thanks to the course's only downhill being right before the late race transition, and closer OGURI can actually use after school stroll as a trigger on this course. CM19 is a medium track with a really good 777s timing, and its only downhill is right before the late race transition, meaning end closer OGURI can actually run 4 recoveries here and be completely fine. And it's not like the 777s timing goes away if she goes late or pace, for example. Finally, CM20 is a rerun of the Arima Kinen, which is normally just kind of an okay course for Christmas OGURI, but she has a lot of things going for her that give her a niche here. You might be familiar with the skill Lose Yourself, or Claw Forward if you want to use its global name, which consumes a bit of your HP to give you acceleration when you're in last spurt mode. As we know, Christmas OGURI will be fine on HP normally thanks to how she's designed, and thanks to the small breather rework, she only needs to find one other recovery to get her trigger. Special shoutouts, by the way, to Deep Breaths and Straightaway Recovery, both of which got reworked to only proc in the mid-race, so you have more options than before. She also gets to take advantage of Innate Experience here, meaning she's not down a gold. It's definitely her weakest course of these 4 CMs, but it's good to have in the back of your mind. Regardless, if we don't get pink skills, I hope you're ready for 4 CMs in a row where an already strong and notorious horse gets indirectly buffed by both July 1 and Grand Live. Or maybe Side Games will just release pinks with Grand Live and all of this will be pointless. So yeah, that's probably not all the stuff that the update affected, but it's the stuff that I felt was most important to go over in this video, especially since it qualifies some of the stuff I said earlier. So yeah, that's all from me. Back to past Capri, where I do the outro. Overall, I really didn't want to hate Grand Live. I think exploring the idol side of Musume is something that could have been really interesting and memorable if executed correctly. I think the music and concerts are great, and Light Hello is a certified cutie, but man, I can't forgive the gameplay on this one. But I know there's a lot of people looking forward to Grand Live due to make a new track burnout, and I mean, while I definitely empathize with that, I also want to temper those expectations slightly. But if you don't want to take this scenario as seriously and only want to see the cute horses singing and dancing, then that's more than legitimate. Play the way that makes you have fun, and if you need to take a break, take it. I mean, I know I'm probably taking a step back from the grind during Grand Live to focus on content, and I was no-lifing make a new track during most of its runtime, so play the game at whatever pace suits you. I hope this video was informative and entertaining. It's been a while since I've done any sort of long-form content, so yeah. I hate doing this part. If you liked what you saw here and want to see more of it and want to support me, subscribe, comment, like, boost the video for the algorithm. I'm on Twitch, I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on Instagram and TikTok, and I also have a Discord server. I don't really have anything else I want to say, so for those of you planning to play Grand Live, good luck on your polls, and yeah, I'll see you guys around. Bye!